And it says in 3 different languages. Remember the different languages? Greek, Aramaic, and Latin. And written by 4 different gospel writers from a different perspective, if you will. But one said, "This is the King of the Jews." And another said, "This is Jesus of Nazareth, the King of the Jews." And one said, "The King of the Jews." And what was the last one? Oh, "This is the King of the Jews." And if we put those all out on the board last week, and if you left off the words in between, they all say the same thing. They all say the same thing. There is no contradiction here. The point for us to remember is this was Pilate's writing, and when he declared it to the people, what did the elders say? Remember the chief priests and the Sadducees and the Pharisees? They said, "Don't say that. Right, he said he is the King of the Jews." You remember that? But what did Pilate say? "What I have written, I have written." He knew all along that they were having Jesus crucified out of envy. And he didn't want anything to do with that, and he washed his hands of it. But think of this. Is this blasphemy? Is this a reason to crucify the Son of God? And Pilate knew it. Okay, we're going to begin today by looking at Mark chapter 15 and verse 20. If you turn in your Bibles there, please. Mark chapter 15 and verse 20. Okay, Gabe, go ahead, please.
"It is these bad things that make people unclean. But if people eat food when they have not washed their hands in the right way, that will not make them unclean."
I'm sorry, are you reading Mark chapter 15, verse 20?
Oh, I'm on Matthew.
Okay. Donato, can you read that, please?
"And when they had mocked him, they took off the purple robe and put his own clothes on him. Then they led him out to crucify him."
All right. Remember, what does purple stand for? Royalty. They've been mocking Jesus. Herod mocks, and the soldiers at Herod's palace mocked him. The soldiers now have mocked Jesus not only in the praetorium, but after he was scourged. And they put the purple robe on him and the crown of thorns and led him out in front of the people and said, "This is your king." No, he's not our king. Who did they say their king is? Caesar is our king. Well, they've taken the purple robe off from him now, and they've led him out to be crucified. They're going to take Jesus from the fortress Antonia, and they're going to take him out to the road that leads to Damascus. Hence the name of the gate of the walled city of Jerusalem. The name of that gate is the Damascus Gate. They're going to lead him out to be crucified. Question, about what time of the morning do you think this is? You know, we've been kind of following a timeline. It was daybreak when they tried him. They took him to Pilate. Pilate's examined him. He's had him scourged, and now they're taking him out to crucify him. The best guess is it's sometime around 8 o'clock or a little after 8 o'clock, Roman time. Roman time. Okay, our time, if you will. Question, would the city streets be lined with people at 8 o'clock in the morning on the eve of Passover? Probably not. In fact, how would the people know that there were going to be people led out to be crucified that were just found guilty that morning? How would the people even know that Jesus had been condemned to death? They had the trial at the break of dawn. They only had enough for a quorum. They didn't invite the whole nation in to witness the trial. They found him guilty, and they've let him out to be crucified. And chances are, folks, it's not like the movies where the streets are lined with throngs of people. There's probably very few people out. And this area of the city is residential. It's not through the marketplace, it's not through the commercial part of the city, which may have had people there setting up shop and getting ready for the day. It's a residential area. And so they lead Jesus out to be crucified. John 19, 16 and 17.
Jack, just a quick question.
Just a second. John 19, 16 and 17. Go ahead, Gabe.
So we just said that there wasn't going to be a lot of people in the street.
It probably wasn't.
Who was the man that helped Jesus when he was too weak to carry the cross?
Why don't you save that question for just like 2 minutes? Okay. Who can read John 19 for us? 16 and 17. All right. That single verse tells us a whole lot. And Gabe, I haven't forgot your question. But that whole verse tells us a whole lot. The soldiers took him out to be crucified. They led him away. And bearing his cross, he went forth to a place called the Skull. And what is it? What's the name of that place in the skull in Hebrew? Golgotha. Why do we sing on Sunday morning sometime Calvary? Where's Calvary? I'm sorry? I can't hear you. Mountains. No. I'm thinking of someplace else, Joanne. When we sing of Calvary, what are we singing of? The cross. Where do we get the name Calvary? Calvary is the Latin for the Jewish Golgotha. It's the same place. So you see how easy people are trying to trick you up about the scriptures being contradictory? They're really not. That's another one of those examples. They lead him away to the place called the Skull. Now I know Tim has been to the Holy Lands. I have not been. But there is a place that they say today is where they crucified Jesus. They call it the place of the skull, and it's got hollowed out sockets in the cliff there. But do we know that that's where Jesus was crucified? No, we don't. We don't really know that. Okay, describe the cross for me. Describe the cross for me. One long and one short, Gabe says. Okay. 2 pieces or 1? 2 pieces. Everybody agreed on that? Yeah, we don't really know, do we? It's been done several different ways. Remember, Rome was not the only country that crucified people. And sometimes the crosses looked a little different than others, but it was a vertical piece of wood and then a crossbar on it. Does it matter if the vertical piece of wood sticks above it and you notch it, or it just sits on the top and then you notch it out with a tenon? It doesn't. It does the same thing, doesn't it? But in this case, we're going to have just a little more insight into that. I want you to look now. We've got 3 verses to look up. Matthew 27:32. That's you, Jan. Thank you for volunteering. And Joy, thank you for volunteering. Mark 15:21. And Lois, thank you. Luke 23:27 through 31. Make sure I get it right. Luke 23:27 through 31. You got that, Lois? Okay. All right. Jan, start us off, please.
As they were going out, they
Simon, and they forced him to carry the cross.
Okay. Joy?
A certain man from Cyrene, Simon, the father of Alexander and Rufus, was passing by on his way in from the country, and they forced him to carry the cross.
Yeah. Lois?
And there followed him a great company of people and of women, which also bewailed and lamented him. But Jesus, turning unto them, said, Daughters of Jerusalem, weep not for me, but weep for yourselves and for your children. For behold, the days are coming, in which they shall say, Blessed are the barren, and the wombs that never bear, and paps which never gave suck. Then shall they begin to say to the mountains, Fall on us, and to the hills, cover us. For if they do these things in a green tree, what shall be done in the dry?
Okay. Question. Who carried Jesus' cross? Huh? Simon? Wait a minute. I thought we just read that Jesus carried his cross. There's a contradiction there. Who carried Jesus' cross? Well, didn't we just read in the first verse today that Jesus carried his cross? In the movie, Jan says. Yeah. Okay, well, in Jack's movie, we're going to put Jesus' cross, or at least the cross beam, on his shoulders, and he's going to carry it from the Praetorium all the way out the gate to Damascus. And once he's outside the gate of Damascus, here comes Simon, probably coming into Jerusalem. He's traveled all the way from Cyrene to get there, and the Roman soldiers take him and say, carry his cross. Does that make sense? Who carried Jesus' cross? He did, and Simon did.
Why did they pick, do we know why they picked this Simon?
Because he was available. Let me point this out. Darcy asked a really good question. Why did they pick him? You remember what we were studying about the prophecies, and the prophecy of he tells you to carry him 1 mile, carry it 2 miles, the parables. Why did Jesus tell him to do that? Because the first mile is drudgery, and the Roman soldier has the right to pick you, Donato, to carry his armor and his shield and all of his stuff for that first mile. And after that, you can drop it, and he's got to find somebody else. And you can carry it the second mile. The Roman soldiers had that authority to order you to do their bidding. So here comes Simon. He's just on his way to celebrate the Passover. He has no idea what's going on, and they say, Simon, get over here. You're carrying this man's cross. Now, question. What kind of condition would Jesus have been in at that time? Exhausted, horrible. He has been scourged with a cat of 9 tails. He's got so much blood on him and torn flesh that he's not recognizable. How far is he going to get carrying that cross? Probably didn't sleep that night. That's right, Jan. He was awake all night, wasn't he? So, if he's carried that cross even a little short distance, he's exhausted. And the Roman soldiers picked Simon to carry it the rest of the way. Let me pose a question for you. Is that a curse or a blessing? For Simon. Is that a curse or a blessing? Louder, Darcy.
You would think that we or him would look at it as an opportunity to serve Jesus. It's an opportunity to carry the cross.
We would, but we know who Jesus is. We know the rest of the story. Poor Simon just came walking up the road. He doesn't know who this guy is. All he knows is that this is one of the people that's been condemned by Rome to be crucified, because here comes the placard saying, this is Jesus of Nazareth, King of the Jews. That's all he knows. He may find out later, but that's all he knows. Go ahead, Joy.
It's just all coming to be that
I don't even know how to spell coincidence. It was all, thank you, but it's all part of God's plan, isn't it? I imagined in my mind that after Simon carries that cross there and he finds out who Jesus really is, I'll bet you he stands and watches. I know I would have. Okay, let's go to the second half here. Jesus tells the people, he turns around after he's given his cross to Simon. He turns around and he says to the people following him, what's he say? Don't weep for me. Don't weep for me. And then he prophesies of the destruction of Jerusalem. It'd be better, women, if you were barren and never bared a child. Jesus knows what's coming. It's not just his crucifixion. Even though he's in deep pain, he turns and he looks at his disciples and those following him, and he warns them. He preaches to them, if he will. He has compassion on them because he knows what's coming for Jerusalem. Now, why besiege a walled city? Why besiege Jerusalem, a walled city? Go ahead, Paul.
To demonstrate that you have power.
Okay, remember the Romans two things? It was what? Power and, yeah, it would pay your taxes and be in obedience. There's going to be a revolt in Jerusalem. They're going to run behind the gates and close the gates and say, ha, 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 you can't get us. And the Romans are going to say, ha, 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 just watch this. They cut them off from their food. They cut them off from their water. They cut them off from everything until the people of Jerusalem are so weak that they can't resist. And then they tear down the walls and they utterly destroy Jerusalem, including the temple. All prophesied. And Jesus, knowing he's going to the cross, in all of that pain at that exact moment, doesn't think about himself, but he turns to his disciples and says, yeah. All right. I want you to turn now to Acts chapter 2, 22, 23. This is a little change here, but let's go to Acts 22. And 23. My penmanship gets worse the longer we go. Sorry. Who can read that? Okay, you got it?
Yeah, this time I do.
Go ahead, Gabe.
The people listened carefully to Paul until he spoke about the Gentiles. Then they began to shout loudly, "Take him away, kill him. It is not right that he should live any longer." While they were shouting this,
I'm in the wrong place, or you are. Acts, I'm sorry, Gabe, Acts 2, 22, 23. Thank you. My fault. Back up to beginning of chapter 2.
Right here. Peter then said, "People of Israel, listen to what I am saying. Jesus, the man from Nazareth, came with God's authority to do his work. God did many powerful and special things through him. These miracles showed you clearly that God had sent him. You know about all this. These things happened here, and you saw them. God knew that Jesus' enemies would give him to you. God had decided that this should happen. You let people who do not obey God's law fix him to the cross, and that way you killed him."
All right. This is Peter standing on the porch of the temple, giving the first gospel message. And he begins by reminding the people who are listening this very story of Jesus. Listen to what it says in the King James. "Ye men of Israel, hear these words. Jesus of Nazareth, a man approved of God among you by miracles and wonders and signs, which God did by him in the midst of you, As ye yourself also know, him being delivered by the determinate counsel and foreknowledge of God, ye have taken and by wicked hands have crucified and slain. You might say, Peter cut right to the heart of the message, didn't he? Which one of us are guilty of the same things? All of us. We have all, through our sin, separated ourselves from God, and we all need this Jesus, the Messiah, the Christo, to redeem us back to God. Just as those people on the day of Pentecost heard the gospel message and were pricked in their hearts and said, what must we do to be saved? Isn't that the same message for all of us today and for the rest of time? Recognizing and realizing that this man Jesus, who God himself confirmed by miracles and wonders and signs, we have it to read. The witnesses throughout the ages who have recorded history for us. Remember, way back when we started this study, we said not everybody agrees that Jesus was God, but everybody knows that there was a man named Jesus who lived. And everybody agrees to that. And now you read about the signs and the wonders and the things that he did and all the prophecies that's come true. This is the Messiah who God confirmed and delivered in accordance with the plan. Mark 15:22. I'm going to have to talk to Matthew about cutting into my time. He was 10 minutes over today. Mark 15:22.
And they brought him to the place called Golgotha, which means place of a skull.
And what does Golgotha mean? The place of the skull. And what is it in Latin?
Calvary.
Calvary. All right. And where is this? Where is the place of the skull? It's outside the city. They're going to hang him on a tree outside the city, just like the scapegoat is outside the camp. And it's on the road to Damascus. Okay? And Luke 23, wait a minute. Nope. Matthew 27:34. Matthew 27, that's you, Jan. Matthew 27:34. And Luke 23:34. Wasn't that you, Lois? Weren't you Luke this morning? Can you read that 23:34? Okay. Jan, when you're ready. Okay.
Then said Jesus, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. And they parted his raiment and his thoughts.
They gave Jesus something to drink. Now, is this Rome feeling mercy on this person? In fact, if you read the descriptions of typically what they would have given him, they say vinegar mixed with gall. In other words, it's a stupefying drink. It's like a narcotic, if you will. It is a form of mercy in one way. It takes the pain off, if you will. But it also extends the life of the guy on the cross, which means he's going to suffer longer. Jesus wanted nothing to do with anything that Rome was imposing on him. They can offer him whatever they want. He's not taking it. He's not taking it. And then Jesus said, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Did the soldiers really know at this point who they were crucifying? No, this is just another Jew. This is just the 3 more guys that we're going to take care of this morning. You would think that these Hebrews would learn sooner or later, wouldn't you? So we're going to make a spectacle out of them again today. 3 more. It's just 3 more Jews. Yes, in fact, Jan, when we read earlier that it would have been 4 soldiers for each prisoner and a centurion, the guy in charge. And if the soldiers would have refused to do what he said, you're right. The punishment for them is death, and it's immediate. So they're going to carry it out. All right, we need to read Luke 23:33. Oh. That's you, Lois. Luke 23:33. Now everybody's saying, how come he's backing up a verse? But go ahead.
And when they were come to the place which is called Calvary, there they crucified him, and the malefactors, one on the right hand and the other on the left.
Okay, I backed us up a verse there because this is one of those divergents in the road. It gets us off on a little bit of a tangent here. But was Jesus alone when he was crucified? No. In fact, what did the prophecies say? He's going to be crucified amongst sinners. And sure enough, here's one on his left and one on his right. Malefactors, the King James says, but those are people who have been condemned by the Romans to be punished. All right, we're going to draw a picture of the cross now real quick. And once again, I'm not saying that this is the way it has to be, but there are a few things that we do know. So if that's the cross, we're going to cut a notch in it. And we're going to put on a crossbeam that also has a notch cut in it. And they're going to fit together. The vertical piece typically was 10 feet tall. No taller than that, but 10 feet tall. You would bring the condemned person to the point of crucifixion. You would fasten the crossbeam to the vertical post. You would lay the person on there, strip them of all their clothes. You would take rope and you would tie them on each arm between the elbow and the shoulder, tie them on to that crossbeam. For one reason, they can't move their hand out of the way. You'd take their hand and lay it out. You'd put the spike in your hand, and they would drive the spike through the hands. And then once the hands are driven in, then you would take the feet and you would put them on a footstool, if you will, or a footrest. And you would drive a spike down through both feet, one on top of the other, into that foot peg. And if you were in a hurry or your foot peg didn't fit the person, you would just turn the feet sideways and you would drive the spike through the ankle and through the foot, sideways into that vertical beam. And now that they're fastened there, the cross would be stood up by the soldiers and dropped into a hole in the ground. That jolt alone, can you imagine that? And then to keep the cross standing up, you would take wooden wedges and drop them in all 4 sides of the cross, the vertical beam, and drive the pegs in, and there stands the cross. You remember when I said we wear crosses sometimes, and they're shiny, and they're pretty, and they're polished, and that's one way we show that we're Christians. And I pointed out the cross really is an ugly, dirty thing that God meant for good. But they meant for evil. And it is a dirty, ugly thing. When I think of just a second please, when I think of the cross, if I'm standing at the foot of the cross and it's only 10 feet tall, it's not like I'm looking up at some figure well above the road. No, he's right there. You're about even with the feet. They're probably drenched with blood. And you're witnessing that writhing in agony and pain and suffering. And the person on that cross is struggling to breathe. You're not going to die from loss of blood. You're going to die from exhaustion and the inability to push yourself up and expand your lungs again and take that next breath. Eventually, that's what's going to kill you. I told you this part of the lesson is ugly, and it is ugly. But that's what our Lord went through, that you and I may have an avenue to be redeemed back to the Father. You had a question, Darcy?
No, it was just, when you mentioned the cross, wearing the cross, I had somebody refer, or use an example one time that it'd be like modern day us wearing a guillotine on our.
Yeah. Wilma?
I was just going to mention that Harold Redding, a previous teacher for many years here, had pointed out that wearing a cross as a piece of pretty jewelry, it wasn't consistent with what the cross really was, and that there was a method of execution to wear that around the neck as a piece of jewelry. He thought not fitting. But that
Not-
was,
not for him.
It just that was his opinion, that it was not a piece of jewelry.
Okay, we're out of time. I know that was the buzzer. But I want to leave you with this thought. The best is yet to come. As depressing as this is, just remember that Jesus knew what's coming, and he faced that trial. He partook of that cup, that the Father's will might be done, and that the plan that God had put into place before the beginning of time is about to happen. Come back next week and we'll talk about the rest of it. Thank you, everyone.